In the unforgiving desert regions of the Middle East, where only stones, windswept sands, and relentless sunlight exist, Israel accomplished something that amazed the entire world. They constructed over 12,000 kilometers of waterways across barren terrain to establish an enormous man-made river system, transporting billions of liters from the Mediterranean Sea to support a dry nation. Israel went beyond this achievement. But first, if you want to know how they did it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as it helps us a lot to keep making these videos. For many years, southern Israel's Negev desert was essentially lifeless territory, parched, fractured, and nearly uncultivable. During summer, temperatures climbed beyond 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and underground water reserves gradually depleted with each passing generation. Farming, the essential foundation of this emerging nation, faced imminent failure, while numerous households relied on water, transported by vehicles from distant areas. Within this hostile environment, merely several dozen miles distant, stretched the Mediterranean Sea, immense, infinite, and containing salt water. This striking difference inspired Israel's most daring venture to bring the ocean inland toward the desert's core. The Desert Water Project received official authorization in 2000, with funding approaching $3 billion. With such dedication and forward-thinking strategy, Israel didn't merely convert ocean water into survival, it confronted the desert directly, compelling rivers to traverse the sand. Before any water could be directed, the initial challenge was transforming the solid, desolate desert into a functional building location. They started with detailed satellite photography, subsurface radar technology, and countless wind assessments to chart the moving dunes and locate sufficiently stable zones for building. Surveying groups resided in the Negev Desert's center for extended periods, creating hundreds of test holes, some exceeding 100 feet in depth, to examine the geological strata buried under the sand. Each route indicator was positioned manually and documented with millimeter-level precision. The complete waterway alignment needed to bypass the wind passages, where one sandstorm could cover the entire construction area during a single night. Numerous bulldozers were brought in to level the dunes, reducing the elevated peaks and moving the sand toward deeper sections. The objective was establishing a level, stable surface capable of supporting building equipment without collapsing risk. Every segment was meticulously scraped and smoothed under rigorous oversight, with surveyors verifying height and incline to guarantee consistency throughout miles of empty desert. Transport systems moved the surplus sand from the construction zone, while compressing equipment carefully pressed the upper layer to establish a solid and functional base. Following the bulldozers' leveling of the dunes, the sand required stabilization. Engineers found that introducing water into the unstable surface helped connect the particles, producing a thicker and more unified layer. Employing extended irrigation devices and buried pipelines, they distributed measured quantities of underground water throughout the location, permitting moisture to sink several inches underneath. After the sand achieved the proper moisture content, powerful rollers advanced, pressing the surface to eliminate air gaps and secure the grains into position. The continuous sound of steel cylinders resonated throughout the desert as every roller pass converted loose, moving sand into a stable, consistent foundation. When the surface dried beneath the desert sun, it had strengthened sufficiently to support the weight of lifting equipment, mixing machines, and transport vehicles. A firm foundation constructed from merely sand and water. After the preliminary work finished, hundreds of excavating machines and enormous hauling trucks commenced one of the biggest excavation projects ever executed in contemporary Israel. Daily, approximately 70,000 tons of sand and earth were extracted from the Negev Desert, along a building passage extending almost 250 miles. More than 1,200 engineers, Machine operators and workers functioned in alternating schedules, withstanding daytime heat that frequently surpassed 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The waterway was formed with a broad U-shape, roughly 150 feet wide at the bottom and an average depth of 23 feet. To enable water to move naturally without mechanical pumps, the lengthwise gradient was maintained within 1 inch per 100 feet, an exceptionally precise requirement across such distances. Surveying teams re-verified height with laser measurement tools every 160 feet to confirm the waterway floor remained flawlessly positioned. The majority of removed sand was repurposed to construct both sides of the banks, creating barriers 10 to 16 feet tall. In mountainous areas, bulldozers excavated the strata progressively, while in lower terrain, trucks transported and consolidated fill substance until the proper level was achieved. In zones with weak earth, engineers installed 16-inch sand supports reaching 20 to 25 feet deep, or combined cement and clay to reinforce the foundation and avoid settling. The building location extended for hundreds of miles, filled with concrete production facilities, equipment repair shops, and field engineering stations. Beneath the intense sun and whirling dust, extended convoys of vehicles and equipment traveled continuously, a mechanical flow shaping the form of an actual one into the Negev desert's heart. This excavation period continued for months. In the Negev desert, the difficulty wasn't simply the temperature and aridity. It was the sand's own absorption capacity, able to soak up any visible water within hours if the waterway bottom wasn't adequately protected. This made the lining process one of the most vital phases of the whole undertaking. Initially, the waterway bottom and inclines were dampened and smoothed with a 2-inch coating of fine sand. Subsequently, concrete sections approximately 4 to 5 inches thick were cast into portions measuring 16 feet long by 10 feet wide, each divided by expansion gaps. These gaps were packed with heated bitumen compound to stop leakage and accommodate thermal expansion. In locations with unreliable underground earth, an extra HDPE waterproof layer was positioned under the concrete, secured with steel fasteners and protected with a cushioning sand layer. Combined, over 220 miles of waterway were covered with concrete, making it among the largest waterproofing operations ever constructed in the Middle East. Alongside the embankments, engineers planted vetiver grass and desert acacia to secure the slopes and reduce sand movement. From overhead, the waterway looks like a glowing silver strip cutting through a sea of gold, a concrete channel awaiting to transport its initial life-sustaining water across the desert. A huge waterway can't just be a trench for water. It demands hundreds of supporting structures to guarantee transport, flood management, and appropriate water control. At the system's beginning, engineers from WAPTA constructed the head regulator at the Tansa Barrage, where water from the Indus River is channeled into the waterway through 9 massive steel barriers. Throughout the primary route, there are over 900 distinct engineering elements, including strengthened concrete crossings, overflow structures, inverted sections, drainage passages, and elevated channels transporting water over natural streams. Whenever the waterway crosses a road or railway, a new crossing is built to preserve traffic movement. In areas that traverse natural water paths, cross-drainage elements are positioned, large passages that permit the natural movement to travel under the artificial waterway. Additionally, distribution barriers are installed every 6 to 9 miles to manage water movement into secondary branches. Everything must function in complete coordination because a single breakdown, whether at a barrier or an elevated channel, could deny hundreds of hectares of agricultural land of their water provision. Following more than 15 years of building, the complete waterway finally reached the water evaluation phase. Engineers activated the barriers at the Tanza Barrage, permitting water from the Indus River to travel portion by portion, progressively raising the discharge from 500 to 2,000 and then 6,000 cusecs. Throughout the route, technical groups examined every location, calculating pressure, inspecting for leaks, observing the waterway slopes, and documenting any ground displacement. Every irregularity was addressed before the system was completely activated. However, it can't reach communities just yet because it's still ocean water, and in the desert, salt can be more hazardous than water scarcity. Before becoming a supply of existence for millions, it must travel through an intelligent desalination operation. A sequence of sophisticated technologies extending from the coastline deep into the interior. At this point, ocean water undergoes numerous phases: mechanical filtration, sand separation, oil extraction, and then nanofiltration and reverse osmosis, RO, where each salt particle is extracted, leaving only pure, consumable water. Electronic sensors continuously observe salinity, pressure, and movement, automatically modifying the operation to preserve the greatest level of cleanliness. Only after completing all these control layers does the water reach the primary waterway, starting its hundreds-mile path throughout the Negev Desert. No longer ocean water, but a genuine survival line for an entire nation established on optimism and determination. The pretreatment phase may have already removed large waste and sediments, yet ocean water still contains innumerable fine particles in microscopic life forms. To stop these from blocking the core of the technology that continues, a phase of fine filtration is added. Within huge filtration containers, black hollow fiber membranes function as ultra-thin obstacles, stopping algae, bacteria, and even the smallest remaining particles. The beginning filtration phases are only the start. The critical phase develops within the reverse osmosis operation. Under tremendous pressure, ocean water is pushed through semi-permeable membranes, each opening hundreds of times tinier than a hair strand. This invisible barrier permits only pure H2O particles to travel through, while salts, heavy metals, and trace chemicals are retained. High-pressure mechanisms create tens of bars of force, converting the salty, cloudy mixture into a flow that's almost pure. Yet as it exits the RO units, the water is so pure it becomes nearly empty, and that very emptiness must be adjusted. Exact dosing operations add small quantities of calcium and magnesium to re-establish pH and restore a clean, natural flavor. Then comes disinfection. Ultraviolet radiation, or ozone, destroys any remaining microorganisms, while a trace of chlorine guarantees long-term protection through the pipelines. Every measurement is observed in real time, and laboratory specimens are examined continuously. Only when all requirements are satisfied is the water transferred from storage containers into the distribution system, moving through miles of buried pipes to residences, medical facilities, and industrial plants. It is a full cycle where the salt of the ocean is converted into safe, consumable water, a demonstration to the impressive capability of contemporary technology. When the initial movement of water traversed the Negev Desert, everything started to transform, not simply on the ground, but deeply within people's existences. Territory that once fractured beneath the intense sun began to revive. Agricultural workers who had once departed because of water scarcity returned, establishing tents, placing markers, and cultivating the initial fields of their existences among the sand and stone. Water from the primary channel of the national water carrier was separated through a system of secondary waterways, pressure pipelines, and drip irrigation operations that transported it straight to each plant, a technology Israel itself created to preserve every drop of water as valuable as gold. The undertaking started in 1953 and required over 11 years to finish, costing around 420 million Israeli lira, equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars at that period. After becoming functional, the operation could move up to 72,000 cubic meters of water per hour, delivering fresh water from the north completely down to the Negev. Consequently, Areas once considered impossible were restored into flourishing agricultural territories. In the initial years, tens of thousands of acres of agricultural land became green. Where there was once only dust and sun, now existed orchards of oranges, vineyards, wheat fields, vegetable operations, and rows of date palms laden with fruit. Observed from satellites, a lengthy green strip winds throughout the Golden Desert. The Green Channel of Israel, the artificial survival line linking the north and south of the nation, the change extended beyond the fields. Communities were reconstructed, children had educational facilities, and high-tech operations emerged from the sand. Now you have discovered the complete narrative of how the Israelis excavated billions of tons of sand from the desert to establish the longest river in the world. Are you impressed by their technology of converting ocean water into fresh water? Share your thoughts in the comments and remember to subscribe for additional content covering the most incredible emerging technologies. See you in the future.